So today on This Is My Journey, we are diving into one of the most overlooked and, important parts of any transformation, the mental and emotional side. And yeah, here in the UK, nearly two-thirds of adults are living with being overweight or obesity. And, it isn't just about physical health. The emotional toll can be huge. And research, including a 2024 JAMA psychiatry study, even shows that newer treatments like GLP-1s don't just support physical change, they can also improve emotional well-being and people's relationship with food. But that doesn't mean that this journey is easy. The stigma, the identity shifts to keep it all secret, can make it overwhelming. And that's why today's conversation is all about the psychological side of change and how we can take care of our minds as much as our bodies. So, as you know, let's roll the intro and then I'll introduce you to today's amazing guest. Welcome to This Is My Journey, the podcast where real people share real stories of transformation, resilience, and growth. I'm Marc, and after navigating my own path through major lifestyle change, I created this space to open up honest conversations around identity, mindset, and what it really takes to evolve. So along the way, we'll also hear from professionals, from pharmacists to psychologists and fitness experts who help us make sense of the science and support behind these journeys. So whether you're just starting out, deep in the process, or you're finding your footing after big change, you are not alone. This is your place. This is my journey. Let's walk it together. Welcome back, everyone, and today I'm joined by Dr. Lucy Harvey, a clinical psychologist with over 15 years experience helping people create real sustainable change. Dr. Lucy specializes in behavioral changes, eating behavior, and she's especially passionate about supporting people who are on or have been on a GLP-1 medication. And what I love about her work is how she helps people take the insights they've learned about food, habits, and that self-belief during their journey and use them to build a healthier relationship with themselves long term. So she's not just about the science, she brings compassion, evidence, and a real understanding of the struggles people face, when their bodies change faster than their minds. So Dr. Lucy, I am so grateful that you're here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Marc.
Yes, no, it's been an absolute pleasure. So for those who, don't know you yet, start by giving us, tell us a little bit just about yourself, what led you into the work of supporting people on their GLP-1 journeys, just a bit about you.
Absolutely. So, as you so kindly introduced, I am a clinical psychologist. I have 15 plus years of experience in working with people across a range of settings. So, like general mental health, eating behaviour, and eating disorder settings. And it's only fairly recently, the last year or so, that I moved into supporting people with weight management goals and specifically those people using GLP-1 medications. And I sort of fell into this area of work because people were finding me at a point where they were so motivated to make a change. They'd sort of started this journey and they were full of sort of motivation of how to take things forward. And that's a really rewarding little corner of
Yeah.
psychology to be working in. And as I was saying to you just before as well, I've
Yeah.
got such limited sort of availability for one-to-one work, working with people on a one-to-one basis around their goals, that I've sort of very recently ventured into social media to try and sort of spread some of those messages that I think are really helpful for people starting out on this journey, to learn a bit more about themselves, their relationship with food and eating, and how they've sort of got to this place with their eating.
Yeah.
So yeah, it felt like it was a bit of a place where psychology was needed, a bit of a sort of corner of motivation where people actually would really benefit from psychology and some of that science and evidence-based thinking around how to sort of move things forward with their goals.
No, I completely agree. And it's definitely, the psychological space itself is not something that everybody really thinks about. And I think, you know, definitely the work you're doing is something that I think is really, really important. And it's something that I think, yeah, we definitely need to be more in tune with in our journeys. And yeah, so happy that you're here and you're joining us. And yeah, hope you don't mind. I have some really like, questions, I suppose, from my own journey as well, like, and things that I know everybody will be thinking and kind of want a bit of advice on and things like that. And I know you offer a lot of different services and stuff and things like that. And we can kind of touch on them at the end and you can signpost people to where best find you and things like that. But I suppose, from your perspective, what are some of the biggest emotional and, I suppose mindset changes that people face when starting out their GLP-1 journeys?
I mean, this is really different for everyone because, of
Yeah,
course, everyone is different. Obesity is different for everyone. Everyone's goals around this journey are going to be really different. But in the early stages, it can often be punctuated by that sort of self-doubt and worry. What if this doesn't work out for me
yeah.
again, maybe? What
Hmm.
if I can't keep up the changes? But also things around like, how will I face judgment from others? What will other people think? What will I say to other people about
Yeah,
how I'm doing this journey? And I think for some people, those questions, they can get quite stuck on the answer to
yeah,
those questions. Whereas for others, you're jumping in with 2 feet, you've sort of got going with it. And that those questions sort of come a bit later on, like, oh my
yeah,
gosh, how, like, if somebody asks me about this change now, how will I respond to it? And I think sometimes planning for that in advance, actually getting it out of your head where they can feel like big scary worries and down onto the
yeah,
page, think, okay, who am I going to tell? What support do I need? What would I do if somebody did ask me directly about this? What would I want to say to them? What would I
yeah,
want them to know? Can make them feel a bit less scary, I suppose, and a bit
yeah,
more sort of practical and
yeah,
planned for.
yeah,
So that's normally what I would say to people starting out when they are sort of plagued by those worries and sort of self-doubt.
yeah. No, it's definitely, very valuable advice. And yeah, I think, I suppose so as this journey, continues and people are progressing on it, many people say that, the body changes faster than the mind, almost like their head hasn't caught up, with this new version of themselves. I know that has definitely been the case for me. Um, so, why do these identity shifts feel kind of, so powerful and, how can people work through them?
I think it's really interesting, isn't it? And
Yeah,
although it can happen with any approach where people are trying to lose weight, it seems to be especially pronounced in people using these medications because
yeah,
the physical change for some can be quite fast paced. And so suddenly you're in a different place and your
yeah,
headspace, as you say, hasn't sort of caught up. And actually, if you spend most of your life or a period of time in a bigger body, some of the stigma and the criticism, so both self-criticism and outward criticism or comments from others, sadly, becomes the norm
yeah,
and becomes quite sort of embedded
yeah,
in how you see yourself, how you think about yourself at a kind of deeper level. And
mhm,
those bits can be more difficult to shift,
yeah,
particularly if you've faced them for a really long time and
mhm,
maybe thought that they defined you or a
yeah,
part of you.
yeah,
And I think actually taking the time to understand yourself, your beliefs about yourself, how they formed, your patterns around sort of food and eating, how you've used food and eating and thoughts about yourself can really help you come to a place of understanding about yourself and what you need going forward as well. Um, so I think that's key. Not everybody needs to do that. Not everybody
yeah,
wants to do that, but I think that's key if you're finding that tripping you up a bit, or if you're
yeah,
noticing that your body has moved forward faster
yeah,
than your mind has. It can be so helpful.
yeah. No, that definitely, I know that has definitely been the case for me. I say it
Yeah.
all the time. And I think, for me, I was definitely a fast responder to this medication, just in
Mhm.
terms of how, I was doing everything the right way. And I think for me, definitely getting to my goal and even just fitting into them smaller size clothes and things like that, it's a lot to get your head around and just that I am this, you know, I suppose healthier person. I don't want to say skinnier because it's not about being skinny, but I think just that this healthier person now, and I'm not used to being in these situations where I'm maybe buying smaller clothes or just even to the point where it's getting, coming up and down the stairs and things like that. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah, I'm just
It's a
not
big
lost.
shift, isn't it? It's a really big shift. And it's
Yeah,
this sort of a feeling of like imposter syndrome in a different body can be a really strange one for people to make sense of.
yeah. No, that's all super interesting, everything you're saying there, like something I can really relate to. So thank you so much. Um, you know, I think a lot of people on this journey talk about feelings like, fear or guilt, and that sort of creeps in, whether it's around food or their progress or just even how others see them. So, for me, I'm really interested in, why do these feelings kind of happen? And, is there a best way to kind of deal with them?
Feels really cruel, doesn't it? I
Yeah,
think when
yeah,
things are going really well, feeling like negativity is just lurking around the corner. And
100%.
it's usually a bit protective, it's trying to protect you against disappointment or hurt that you might have
Yeah,
experienced before at times where, things have been going really well and then something's happened, it's gone a bit wrong or whatever. So they're trying to protect you,
yeah,
but it's like a bit of a critical warning sign that people build up over
yeah,
time that sort of says, don't get too used to things going well. It could all go wrong soon. And
yeah,
remaining positive in the context of that is really hard.
yeah,
And I think, in my opinion, what's important to remember is that these are your thoughts, they're not facts. We really believe our thoughts,
yeah, yeah.
but they're not necessarily always true. And it can be helpful to sort of gently challenge those
Mhm.
to sort of have a look at the evidence that they're not 100% true. So, for example, if you're thinking something like, oh, I should be losing this quicker, or I'm not making enough progress. I mean, if you're saying should about anything you're
Mm.
doing, then that's
Yeah,
a sort of fast track to self-criticism anyway. But like, you're being unkind to yourself in these
so, yeah,
moments. So trying to remind yourself, I've made a long-term commitment to myself, that this isn't about speed, and I'm moving at my body's pace, some sort of helpful, kind affirmations as well as sort of building up things that make you feel good. Because
yeah,
actually, if your own thoughts aren't making you feel so good, then what have you got around you that you can
yeah,
draw on at those times? People that you can go to, just things, hobbies, activities, stuff that makes you feel good again, so that you're really bolstering yourself and making yourself feel supported along this journey when those negative emotions creep in, because they will.
yeah.
And I think tackling them, building yourself up is the best thing you can do for yourself.
What role itself then does self-compassion play in making that lasting change? And, how can people actually, you know, really practice it day on day?
It's not easy. And I
No.
talk about this all of the time because I'm honestly of the view that how you treat yourself makes such a huge difference to your well-being on this journey.
Yeah.
And there's growing research evidence that suggests being kind to yourself using self-compassion can impact on achieving your goals in
Yeah.
a weight management setting or
Yeah.
in a weight management space. So you're relying on yourself for this to go well, and you're
Well,
relying
yeah.
on being kind to yourself for it to go well. And that can be really difficult because I'm suggesting that you need to be making a shift from possibly being your biggest critic to being your biggest cheerleader. And
Cheerleader.
that happens one step at a time. You can't
Yeah.
just do that
Yeah.
overnight. Um, One of the biggest tips that I have for people trying to start out being a bit kinder to themselves is when you notice yourself being critical. So saying something unkind yourself, just checking in, is that something that I would say to a friend? So checking in with yourself. Would I say that to a friend? If you pop an outfit on and you go, oh, no, thanks. Would you say, oh, don't wear that to a friend?
Yeah.
Or actually, what would you say if a friend was wearing an outfit that didn't look their best on them? A close friend, perhaps you would say, oh, I like a different color on you, or something that's
Yeah.
just a little bit kinder.
Kinder.
And it doesn't have to be going from biggest critic to biggest cheerleader
Yeah.
in that moment, but just something a little bit kinder.
Yeah.
And I've got a sort of activity for getting started
Mm.
with self-compassion and my maintenance workbook that I've got
Yeah.
on my website. And it's
Yeah.
just a few little activities, a few little ways that you can get started with being a bit more kind to yourself because it doesn't come naturally. We're
No,
great at criticizing ourselves. We're not
we
so
aren't.
good at being kind to ourselves.
No, we really, really aren't. And I know I definitely on my journey have, you know, I suppose it's that. I always find it's more like that inner saboteur almost. It's like trying to
Absolutely.
come for you, and it's that little almost person on your shoulder telling you, you can't do this or whatever. And for me, I've really tried practicing, and it's going to sound ridiculous to some people maybe listening, but it works for me, and it's just talking positively and kindly to myself in the mirror, just whenever I'm getting ready, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe how far you've come, or yeah, just being kind to yourself, and you're
Absolutely.
totally nail on the head there with that. And I always say this journey's it's not a sprint. You don't have to get to the end. You really need to look after your you know the physical, yes, but also the mental and emotional, and it's just as important.
It
Yeah,
really
I
is.
think that's um really resonates with me, and I'm sure it'll resonate with a lot of people listening. So really kind of coming to the end of this, and it's been so interesting, talking to you and hearing what you've got to say and stuff, because it is such an important part of this journey. If anybody listening could take away one mindset shift, what would you want it to be?
There's so many there's so many I could use here. I think I think treating every setback as an opportunity for learning more about yourself.
Love that.
There will be setbacks.
Yeah,
Like nothing is ever going to be straightforward. Habit change is hard.
yeah,
Staying kind to yourself is hard. It's all hard. But actually, every time it's not going right, that's an opportunity for learning more about yourself,
yeah,
about what you need, about what's missing. And that gives you an opportunity then to build up a plan for it to go better next time. It's
yeah,
all learning, it's not going wrong, it's just learning. And you don't have to be brimming with compliments for yourself. You don't even have to believe the compliments you're giving yourself in the mirror 100%. You just need to give yourself the grace to sort of build on what you're learning about yourself rather than kicking yourself while you're down. And I think that's important. Yeah,
yeah,
take it all as learning, be practical and move. You can only move forwards.
yeah. No, that's the best advice, guys, and you've heard it here. I think it's that's a solid one to go with, and yeah, totally something I will now be taking even into my maintenance journey and things like that. So, I know you yourself, you offer lots of, different services, that people can get involved in if they want any support on their journeys or things like that. Do you want to touch on anything that you kind of offer and where people can find it, and maybe drop in, your social handles if there's anything there that because obviously I know how good you are. I kind of want everybody else to know how good you are, and really find the support that I think is really important on this journey.
Yeah, I've got a range of different support options on my website. I'm glp1psychologist.com, and there's courses, there's free resources, there's stuff for you to just sort of dip into at your leisure and work out actually what support do you need, what's going to
Yeah,
work for you, as well as one-to-one therapy as well, if that's something that people are looking for or need. I've
yeah.
sent you, Mark, a discount code for your listeners to do
Ooh,
one of my
love.
3 key skills courses, which is some of the sort of key psychological skills that are really helpful, practical skills that are backed by science, evidence-based, that are helpful for your journey. So that's always a good one to get
Yeah,
you started with some of the sort of key skills you could
yeah,
use for your journey. But yeah, have a look on there. There's loads there. I'm also, as I say, making a little entry into social media. I'm Dr. Lucy Psychologist on TikTok.
I'll drop that code and stuff for anybody that's interested. I'll put it into my link in my bio and stuff. And yeah, I'll drop it in below wherever you get your podcast from, guys. You'll see it in the comments or in the info section. So definitely check it all out, and definitely check out Dr. Lucy's pages and our websites, because honestly, there's resources there that are, in my opinion, critical to your journey and looking after your, emotional and that mental well-being on this journey, because it's so important. So all that's left for me to say is thank you so much, Dr. Lucy, for joining
You.
me and for all your insights that you shared with us today. I wish it could be longer, but we could talk. I could literally talk about this for hours because I am so interested in it. But I really, really appreciate you giving up your time to come and, let everybody, you know, into your knowledge and your advice and your almost some secrets. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Yes. Catch us on the next one, guys.